Hello, friends. Welcome to the Shaman's View. And wow, it's been an amazing week, incredibly intense, incredibly amazing time. The um, the world keeps changing, keeps getting more beautiful. The human impact in the world is diminishing tremendously. And where we are in South America, at a mountaintop in our shamanic retreat center, the skies have never been this blue. The grass has never been this green. It's been extraordinary. And at the same time, we know how much suffering is happening in the world. We know that it's a time to take our practice into the quantum field that we all share with humanity to create peace, to create healing, and to create beauty. So today we're going to be doing a meditation to do that. In our shaman's view today, which is the view from the invisible world, we all get the news from what's happening in the visible world and the quest for a cure. The invisible world is really calling to us to not only try to fix the damage that's being caused by this epidemic, but really to dream a new world into being, where we can actually live healthy lives in harmony with the environment, with each other, practicing beauty, creating beauty around us. So frequently, students will ask me, what about karma? Do shamans believe in karma? And I say to them, yes, of course, karma is obvious. I mean, you and the bill always comes in. But they tell me, well, karma is an Eastern concept, isn't it? How do you find that in the Americas? So we find it everywhere in the world. The notion that we need to live in right relationship, and when we're out of balance, we incur debts that we can pass on, maybe to the next generation or to the one after that, but eventually they all come due. And today, our debts have come due with the planet. Now, even in the Christian mythology, you understand, and we hear that the sins of the father will be paid for by 7 generations. So in the shamanic traditions, you speak about having to plan, understanding the impact of every one of your actions, and that they will ripple down for 7 generations, losing power and intensity, but eventually it takes 7 generations to extinguish them. So you're careful with every one of your actions, knowing the tremendous impact that they will have. And today we're living the choices that were made by our grandfathers and their grandfathers. The choices about lifestyle, about economics, about health, and about disease. Today we're living those impacts. And at a personal level, we know that we inherit the beauty and the tragedy that runs in our families. The tragedy are those hurts and those wounds and those belief systems about scarcity, about sexuality, about intimacy, about how supported we are in the world or not, that we inherit these. In fact, we get 50% of our belief systems while we're still inside the womb, because the stress hormones go right through the placental barrier, and they begin to create neural networks in the brain even before we are born. So we're born already with a set of belief structures, not only conditioned by these stress hormones, but by the conversations that we heard while we were still in the womb. I remember a client of mine coming to see me that I would see every 6 months, and then she skipped a session, and she came 6 months later, big belly, boyfriend in tow, and I asked her, what's new? And she pointed to her belly and she said, we met 4 months ago and I'm 3 months pregnant now. And we've been talking for the last 3 months whether we should keep the baby or not. And we finally decided that we're going to keep the baby, and we want you to help us really become a family. So I looked at her, I scanned her, and I took out my rattle and I began to track in her energy field. And as I switched over my vision into the shaman's way of seeing, into seeing the invisible world, not the visible. She had a big, big belly. Even though she was 3.5 months, she was very noticeable. But right above her belly was this little orb, this little golden orb, and it was her child. And the child's spirit was separated from the embryo. And this child was going to be born with soul loss. Part of its soul was going to hold back. Because, of course, for the last 3 months, all that it had been hearing was, well, I wonder if mommy and daddy are going to love me and keep me, or if they're going to get rid of me. So I said to them, start talking to your baby. Tell your baby how much you love her, how much you love him, how welcome he is, and how you can't wait to nurse him and to hug him and to hold him, and how excited you are. And the next time I saw them, a year later, they brought in a really healthy little boy that was fully embodied, who had not suffered any kind of soul loss, had not suffered any trauma. So we inherit the conditions that run in our family. We know that to be the case with our genetics. We know that the diseases that run in our family, when you go to your doctor, they'll ask you, what did your mother and your father die of? And we know that we also inherit the dramas that run in our family. The dramas of scarcity and abundance and feeling good about ourselves and how lovable and capable of loving we are. And that's not a very good inheritance to have, neither one of those. We want to break free of the genetic curses, the generational curses that are passed down from generation to generation, generally from mother to daughter and father to son. We want to break free of the genetic curses, because that becomes the default programming. If we don't begin to create a new map for ourselves, we default to the genetic map or to the psychological map that we inherited from our families. So we want to tear these maps up, put them in the fire. We want to break free of the curse of the ancestors. Now, there's some very beautiful things also that we have inherited, and we want to cherish those and honor them. And it helps us if we kind of switch over to the Hindu understanding of karma, that all of it is karma. There's bad karma and there's good karma. And good karma is, by its very name, a little bit better than bad karma, but it's still karma, because it still predisposes us to live out the good and to be bound in a golden cage, like we frequently are. So we want to break free of all of the inheritances, the toxic inheritances that we had, cherish the good, and then eventually let go of that as well. So we can grow our own lives, we can chart our own maps, and we can become the storytellers instead of an actor in the story. So the question is, how do we do that? How do we undo these generational curses so that we don't pass them on to our children? And I remember as a young man saying to myself, I will never raise my children the way that I was raised. I'm going to be a different kind of dad. And then 25 years later, I looked into the mirror and I said, oh my God, I've become my father. And then, of course, I had to really begin to heal from these unconscious belief structures that I had inherited. Now, the shamanic lineage that we practice and that I have been trained in, and for a long time I hesitated to, people ask me, what well, what are you? You say, I'm a medical anthropologist. Today I say that I'm a shaman. I'm old enough, and if you've been, if you've been cutting wood for 25 years, eventually you become a carpenter. And today I say, yes, I'm a shaman. I'm a shaman with a PhD, but I'm a shaman. I'm a medicine man. I'm a person that has embraced his medicine. And I truly want to invite you to embrace your inner shaman, to embrace your medicine, because it's your medicine that will set you free from these generational curses as you become empowered and as you become the cartographer of your own journey through life. And in the lineage that I have been trained in, it's a lineage of fire. It's not an Inka lineage or Hopi lineage or Mayan lineage or a Bon lineage from the Himalayas. They're all basically coming from the same source. They're coming from the same glacier. It's not the little river that you identify with, but you identify with the water and with the rain and with the sea that all of these little rivers eventually lead to. But there are 4 distinct traditions of shamanism in the planet, and they're the shamans of the air, and their practice is storytelling, and the shamans of the earth, their practice is breeding and crossbreeding, their wisdom and their corn. They're the shamans of water, the water practitioners. They are the healers and the midwives that receive the babies when the water sac bursts. And they're the shamans that have the practices of fire. In the East, they're called the practices of the Kundalini, of the Tantras. In the Americas, they're the keepers of the fire, which was the most important task of the shaman for many, many thousands of years, because we have been praying and sitting and telling stories around the fire for 1,000,000 years. But we only learned how to make fire 300,000 years ago. So in our tradition, the lineage that we practice is a fire lineage. It's a rapid lineage, rapid transformation. Like the phoenix, eventually the fire consumes you and you die and you're reborn into a new being. And it's very rapid transformation and very applicable to the times that we're living in today. So these generational contracts and curses, we put them into the fire. We release them to the fire. We've done fire ceremonies together the last few Fridays, and I invite you to do that now, starting with the curses, with the terrible things that we inherited from our ancestors. And not only from mom and dad and grandma and grandfather. Like I inherited a terrible sense of scarcity. We were refugees, we lost everything, we had to, and all my life I was always saving the good wine and not wanting to use the good glasses because they might break. I put that in the fire, and today I live in abundance. And it has nothing to do with what I have or I don't have. It has to do with that inner state, with the lilies in the field that have everything they need. So I invite you to find first a track. Use your shamanic tracking skills. Take your rattle out, take your drum out, or simply close your eyes and ask that you be shown all of the belief structures that you inherited unconsciously and that still operate unconsciously. And when you ask to be shown, know that you will not be shown immediately, but you make a commitment with your soul and with your heart, and in the course of the day, of the week, of the next 2 weeks, you will notice. You'll notice how these unconscious beliefs play out in your life. And then the minute that you do, stop whatever you're doing, or wait until the end of the day, light a candle, take a toothpick, and place that in the fire. And the fire is our very first and most ancient ceremony. Remember, we told the stories around the fire. And there is a very ancient part of our brain, it's called the limbic brain, the mammalian brain. It's the brain of fear and of scarcity and of violence and of family and beautiful things also. But it's the brain that needs ceremony in order to change. And today I've come to the conclusion that we cannot change our mind unless we change our brain. And this brain needs ceremony to change. It needs fire. That's why we have bar mitzvahs and weddings and baptisms and menopause rites and manhood and womanhood rites and death rites. The brain needs these rites of passage. And fire is the most ancient of the rites. So take those belief structures, take those generational curses, begin with the terrible ones, place them on the stick that you're going to offer to the fire, and then put it in the fire. And as that toothpick is burning, release it. Use your intention. Make an act of power and an act of love, and release it with the breath. I let you go. You've served me well. I no longer need to subscribe to that. And then after you complete the terrible ones, after you work through the really difficult inheritances that we had, that may even manifest as physical symptoms and physical conditions and blood pressure issues and all of the illnesses of civilization. They have a belief structure associated with them. They have a trauma that happened maybe 5 generations ago that was handed down to us. When you're done with those, put the beautiful ones in with gratitude, to say thank you to the grandmothers and the grandfathers that gifted you with the resilience and the endurance and the strength and the patience and the practice of forgiveness. All of those gifts, put them in the fire also, and they will come back to you tenfold. But you will release them so that you can now craft your own destiny and not have it be an iteration of the lives that they lived. So you no longer have to be editing that book of life that you received in your genes and in your family karma, but you can become the author of your own book and of your own story. Take it to ceremony. Today we need to shed the world that we inherited from our ancestors, and it's being stripped away from us. And best that we release it voluntarily so that we can get down to the business of dreaming a new world into being. And as we do so, we discover that you and I are the ones that we've been waiting for all along. Thank you very much for joining me today at the Shaman's View, the view from the invisible world. And know that your prayers, your love, your intention, your ceremony can create a standing wave in the field that will bring peace and healing to the planet. I'll see you next Friday at noon. Thank you.